Hello everyone, welcome back to Munro Live. I'm Kevin, and behind me we have the 2026 Cadillac Escalade IQ. This particular vehicle we have here, I think is clocking in at just over $150,000. And as we kind of will see here shortly, it's very, very similar, which is good to see, to the Silverado EV that a gentleman had brought in, probably about a year or so ago, where we did see some differences between the GMC Hummer EV and the Silverado, although they're largely based on the same architecture. We saw a lot of differences in their control arms and things of that nature. Cradle mounting points specifically in the rear from the Hummer to the Silverado. So as we kind of come under the vehicle itself here, we kind of look at this corner here. The aluminum control arms, pretty much everything about the front suspension looks identical to the Silverado, which again is good. As we look towards like the overall brake package, a big theme when we talked about the Silverado and obviously with the Hummer is the weight. Obviously it's very large. This is probably coming in around just over 9,000 pounds. And you can see that just how the weight kind of cascades through whole systems, right? The size of the ball joints, the size of the strut pickup points here. They're doing dual mounts here, checking them twice, it looks like here, for quality checks as they come through. Just the overall size of the system is very, very large. One thing I do find interesting, because we'll do another video, because we actually do have a torn down IQ coming in from A2 Mac 1. So we'll probably go through the entire body in white and some of the other chassis systems a little bit more in depth. We're going to keep this pretty high level. But having a chance to see this all together, I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see this too much, but when we looked at the Silverado, we didn't do a teardown on the Silverado. And then when we looked at, with the Hummer we only had certain portions, but you can see right there, the bumper beam. And it's pretty traditional. From right here, it looks like it's probably like a roll form, steel section, but it's only coming to like roughly this threshold of the vehicle. So a lot of times when we do these reviews, we talk a lot about SORB. In the past, and we've looked at a lot of Hyundai Kias, that for a long time, they were not really doing a lot of like essentially like offensive SORB countermeasures where you would see them reinforcing anything front of axle. This vehicle actually surprisingly has not a lot of what we would kind of consider offensive SORB countermeasures. The rails are splayed as they work outwards, but not coming into that 25% overlap threshold. It makes me kind of think when you look at the overall size of the vehicle, more specifically because of the Ultium pack and the height that it drives, this very large section of the torque box, they're probably able to manage most of that just here within the body structure itself, the battery, how the cradle kind of overlaps with the battery, which from like I would say an overall systems perspective is nice to have, because for those particular events, you end up throwing a lot of weight and cost out to the front of the vehicle for a very particular event. It's important because it's a violent crash event, but if you can get away from not just throwing mass and weight up there and manage it through the rest of the body structure or the chassis systems, I would consider that a plus. Unfortunately, given the volume of these vehicles, they're relatively low. I'm not sure if we'll ever see IIHS, crash one through SORB, but when you look at some of the NCAP testing and initial testing, they do well. So there's no reason to suggest that GM is not necessarily, protecting for that. But as we kind of look at these rails, you kind of can see here that this front lower cross member here for the front cradle, you have all your mounting points for the cooling module. So more than likely, this is all getting decked up to the vehicle with one point. It has kind of like an angled intake interface, and you can kind of see that here. They are doing, dual shot cooling system ducting. Ducting is super important for like aerothermal efficiency. And they are still doing dual shot. A lot of people started transitioning to essentially single shot and doing just really thin wall sections here, and getting the flexibility they need out of like a single material. But they are still doing dual shot. The entire front cradle is steel. It does kind of surprise me from like a volume perspective. Maybe they anticipated significantly higher volumes. Typically in some of the lower volume Cadillacs in the past, like with the CT5, like the Omega platform in general, on the body structure itself, they had a lot of nodal castings, a lot of use of castings in the subframes on those particular vehicles. And in some manners on lower volume applications, the investment for stampings can be very high. So I am surprised just in general not to see more here, but that could be a balance between functional performance, weight, and crash safety. But as we kind of look through it, the steering rack is forward of the front drive module assembly. Literally, as far as I can tell here, it's pretty much a carbon copy of the Silverado that we've seen. So same thing with the Hummer EV. I think even its front cradle was very, very similar. The differences that we saw looking from the Hummer to the Silverado were primarily in the rear cradle and its shape and the orientation of the control arms themselves. You can kind of see here the motor mounts reach forward. They come in, kind of flank the front motor bay rail. As we spoke about before, these are essentially, aside from the shock towers themselves, which are large castings, again, they appear to be pretty much identical from what I can see from here. These steel motor bay rails, very, very similar to the Silverado. They essentially are doing, from what I can feel, when you look at this box section on the top here, they are doing essentially an upstanding spot weld flange, and they're probably piggybacking and grabbing that casting and mounting to it with SPRs. Down here, you can see they're doing one-sided assembly, MIG welding operations, and tying up, a pretty substantial overlap between the materials. I can feel through here. It's coming essentially right through here. So not too terrible. You can see also some Tailor welds. So they're changing material grades, which makes sense from essentially where you have likely some harder materials here to facilitate mounting, and then essentially potentially softer ones, coinciding with these little bird beaks here in the motor bay rail, here in the cradle, to essentially get some of this material to flex and move outward as you get into a front impact and you start to kind of stack up these hard points within the front end of the vehicle. The drive module looks pretty much identical from the one that we've seen here. So you have the outer, your differential kind of carrier assembly here, your two gaskets on either side. It does kind of give you some advantages as far as how the differential is supported from a bearing perspective, but you end up with a little bit of complexity with not only this piece, the machining ops and the sealing. We have our oil pump here. You can see here in the back of our plate cooler, the exchanger. The high voltage power electronics are on top. I'm not sure if we talked about this last time, but when you look at where the sway bar mounts on the back here of the cradle, I can't help but think that when you look at here, these rear castings on these mounts, maybe if you want to take a look here, Eric, it may be a little excessive for material, but it kind of screams to me that the Audis have done this in the past, and the BMWs, where they've captivated sway bars between both body structure and cradle structure in the past. You don't necessarily need to do it, but it's right there. It screams to me like it wants to be, but I bet you if I ran the numbers, how much aluminum you end up adding, it probably would be more expensive to do that. So
everything that's visible, and you always got to point to stuff that you can't see.
That's where the interesting stuff is. While you're here, you can see essentially, GM has done this for a number of years, essentially castleization. Here on these stampings, you can see real nice clean spot welds as they kind of come through here. They're sealing on the top. They leave this open here, more than likely for drainage. I don't see it so much on this, but in some of their past vehicles, they'll both scallop and castellate, a lot of their joints. So wherever there's material not needed, they'll cut it out for the scallops to save some weight. And it does matter when you start, doing an entire body in white that way. And then essentially, the castellization can help with panel nesting, water drainage and clearing, and just getting moisture out and away from that body in white, and panel forming as well. But as you saw, everything is just very, very large on this vehicle. I just want to draw some attention here to the other side of the wheel. You can see in through here. So, this is probably a cast and then turned wheel. And you can see they're doing plastic inserts as well. This is something that we've seen trending here recently, and Arm and I kind of key into it. They're not taking on this particular package, full advantage, I would say, if we want to spin around. But plastic inserts we're seeing a lot of. So you have essentially a machined face here, the wheels are being painted, they're machining and cleaning this face, then they're clear coating. If they wanted to, they probably made a decision with this particular package, color or whatnot, just they wanted it all black. But then you could essentially do, a single metallic black here, and then these bolt-in plastic accent pieces. You could do like a gunmetal gray or metallic or whatever else, just to draw some more attention here. And then obviously you could swap these out to give, a little bit more options and customizability to, your wheel sets. As we move on to the vehicle, we kind of talked about this before. So they're doing, essentially kind of like a sandwiched, I don't want to call it a skid plate, but underbody protection is closing out the bottom portion of the pack. So we'll probably go to the rear because it's a little bit easier to see on the rear side. But they have essentially like kind of a layered structure, like a wafer. They're laser welding a lot of this. So they essentially have their bonding, spot welding, and then this doubling up of this kind of structural offset wafer is all laser welded, as you can kind of see through here. So a fair bit of time, and they're not that expensive, but the cells do generally run a little bit more than your MIG welding cells, but they're much cleaner, and plants generally prefer, aside from the cost, laser welding cells over MIG welding cells. They don't really like MIG welding cells from some of the environmental aspects of that cell itself. So little differences here. This is kind of be expected from just managing air differently from the Silverado. In the Silverado, these were kind of on an angle, and then all this was a little bit different. So realistically, with the wheelbase differences, you know, we were able to see a little bit more with the Silverado. Largely, as far as like the rear structure, control arms, rear drive module, all that stuff is essentially the same. Here you can kind of see a little bit inside with just, again, the size of the structure itself. You know, these members are very large. It's a unibody structure, but it's, when you look at the size of the sections here, it's reminiscent essentially of you know, your full-size body-on-frame trucks, and then just a lot of gusseting to kind of bridge these key nodes on the vehicle since it is unibody. Since we do have the wheel off, and you can kind of see here, again, to kind of just the point of the overall size of the vehicle. So kind of like a relatively drawn U-shape shaping here, forming the top portion of the rear dampener mount. It's coming up, and it's coming right alongside essentially the inner rail structure itself as it comes into like a secondary structure out here on the outboard side of the rail where you're starting to create the wheelhouse. And then you can just see how it kind of coincides. And again, these are pretty, there's a lot of form here, and they have essentially, they're doubling up. So you have your inner stamp bucket here, and then they reinforce that coming and sleeve it around to get up to this like kind of secondary rail that they have for the dampener pocket for the air suspension. But it really just kind of shows as that comes around here, and then the shock tower for this kind of comes through. They both tie together here. These joints overlap. So there is a lot of overlapping material to get these various kind of structural monuments to tie together to help manage just all your overall inputs from the road into the vehicle body structure itself. So with these tubes, typically speaking, you know, you'll mandrel bend the tubes themselves, and you kind of have this gusset coming off this lower control arm mounting point. But you can see as it moves rearward, the sweep changes. A little bit of clearance to get around the CV axle, but as we come more rearward, if you want to look specifically up here, Eric, you know, you got to manage how they kind of tuck that tube down. So, you know, hydroforming is great, but you do have essentially a constant diameter that you have to work with. And let's see here, I just want to make sure this isn't two separate pieces. Nope. So as you look rearward, as this comes through here, if you want to look on the outside, you can see how they change the section, and it starts losing some of that cross car width and starts going more vertically oriented because they have to manage the material back here, and then get a little bit better example back here. So that's kind of a cool example. And you can see how much thinner this is, and some tool marks here. So that could be from the mandrel bedding itself, or essentially when the tool closes on the bent pipe itself, and then they pump in water to kind of form the overall tube section. But that's a really nice example, essentially maintaining that overall sectional area, but tailoring it as it moves through the sweep of that section. Okay, so as we kind of come over here to the back, just high level overview. So this does have air suspension. You can see essentially the air bladder itself here is disassociated from, you know, the dampener. As we move rearward, they're both separate mounts, and we kind of come down. I'm going to take a look in through here. It's a little bit easier to see. You can see the upper control arm. A lot of times these upper camber arms or control arms here, they have a lot of sweep. This one does have some pretty funky geometry, which is why they've gone into aluminum to get these nice tight radiuses that they have here. As you can kind of see right through here, you know, real tight gooseneck as it comes around. So you have the front mount here, and the rear comes up. You have an extruded bushing can here that bolts and sleeves over that hydroform rail section, and then comes out with the ball joint to a forged knuckle coming down itself into a very, very large, stamped steel lower control arm. Again, you get to see that kind of the berth where the air bladder for the air suspension sitting. They double wall the mounting points for the dampener itself, kind of close off the front for aero, probably gets a mean whistle, and probably had to add this. And then you can just see the access for tool heads coming into fixture and fasten this. But again, very, very large sweep. As you look through the side here, one of the things that's kind of interesting, with the rear steer and the ability and the clearance, as it comes out here, quite a bit of material, used to push this surface out. And then essentially they have a cast ball joint, mount here. So we've seen this on, Toyota does this a lot, but just what they probably need, they can't necessarily get within the stamping itself. So they brought this in, welded in, they're gonna have that cast, ball joint surface for the ball joint to sit and seat in. And rolled stamped aluminum brake dust shields. It's interesting, this goes back and forth all the time in the industry between steel and aluminum. There's the cost of aluminum, a lot of times just a raw aluminum brake shield though, kind of wins out, for weight, where the steel ones, you got the E-coat, so there's some processing there. So it depends. With aluminum prices the way they are now, it's probably a little bit rough in comparison to steel, but overall, relatively conventional for the rear corner suspension layout. So thanks for watching, stay tuned. We are gonna go through this in a little bit more detail for exterior and interior, and then when we get a little bit more time, we're gonna lay out some of the parts that we have here from A2 and go through all this in a little bit more detail. So thank you.